Hello folks, welcome to this little chat. My name is Afatchao and I'm the president of the board of ICPSD.
My name is Whitney Schroeder. I'm the executive director. I'd also like to thank you for joining us today. We are going to talk about ecosystem restoration. So we're up, first question.
Yeah.
What is ecosystem restoration?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very important question because what we're doing actually fits within that concept of ecosystem restoration. So in order to answer that question, I may step back a little bit and talk about how degraded the environment in Togo is, right? And because the ecosystem is degraded in Togo, we have a fragmentation of habitat, right? And then Togo, as we've mentioned in our previous chart, Togo is the third worst deforested country in the world. And as such, we've seen a lot, degradation, damage to the ecosystem in the country. And when we're talking about ecosystem restoration, it's the action of restoring, right, degraded or damaged ecosystem or habitat by actively managing it, by using human intervention in order to basically restore that damaged, destroyed ecosystem. So that's why when we're talking about Togo, instead of focusing just on reforestation, we think that restoration will be the main focus, even though we will start from reforestation.
Can you go into that in a little more depth, kind of that differentiation between just reforestation and like full ecosystem restoration?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, trees are only one set of components of ecosystem. In ecosystem, you have way more elements. So you have trees, you have shrubs, you have various type of fauna, various type of flora, like animals and all those stuff. They each interact with each other, and the ecosystem is like sort of a living organism by itself. So if you remove one element out of it, you basically are degrading that environment, that ecosystem, right? So, but let's face it, trees actually offer a lot to the ecosystem, meaning that they offer this like canopy cover. They provide food system. For example, fruit trees provide food. They provide shade. They provide like a habitat for wildlife that will live in the ecosystem. So and then as such, trees in some ways serve as what is known as a keystone species. Those are species that are important for the ecosystem. If you remove them, the ecosystem will not survive, right? So by degrading the ecosystem, we basically by causing deforestation, we basically degrading that ecosystem, right? So we thought that in order to restore the ecosystem, it's so critical to start planting trees because trees take a long time to grow, right? But reforestation include way more than just deforestation action. Restoration action include way more than just reforestation, right? For example, you will need to restore the soil. And trees play a role also in restoring the soil, right?
They're pretty foundational.
Exactly. You need to restore water system within the ecosystem, right? In order to basically restore that ecosystem. So trees are a major component of that ecosystem. So that's why in ICPSD, over the last 6-7 years, we've focused specifically on actually growing trees, right? And then some of those trees, we are planting them, along riverbeds and all those stuff in order to restore the ecosystem on riverbeds and all those stuff. But ultimately, in the near future, we are going to be doing way more in sort of soil management, in water system management within the ecosystem. And as you know, in our outplanting site, we are not just planting trees as a sort of monocrop, planting the same type of trees. We are mimicking natural forests, right? But again, the reforestation is our action in order to help nature recover, right? So that's why we focus on the ecosystem restoration.
I'd love for you to go in a little bit more depth on what you just mentioned about how at our outplanting site we are trying to mimic that tree diversity and plant diversity.
Yeah, so basically on the outset of the project in 2016, we've said to ourselves that we're not just gonna grow trees, have a tree plantation, right? Because we wanted to do reforestation and we wanted to do ecosystem restoration, it's very important, it's critical to basically mix trees just like you will see them in nature,
Yeah.
right? In nature, you don't just see like one set of trees, right? So at the beginning, I remember our first experimentation on the outplanting side. We grew about 5 or 6 different species, and we actually mixing them. Some of them are like a sort of trees that are gonna provide, nutrient for the soil. A lot of and those nutrients will help other trees that we're planting grow. And then later on we use different plots, so we're using different mixes to actually see how those will work over time. But it's critical that we see what is being done in what is already natural over there in the nature over there, and try to mimic that as much as possible. And that's why we focus on native species only. We didn't want to bring any foreign species that will destroy, that will basically create the sort of damage to the ecosystem that we're trying to restore, right? Yeah. So our focus has been on those native species and try to mix them and see how they do, just in nature, and see if because they're endemic species to those areas, we believe that they will basically grow well in nature and be able to interact just like in ecosystem, and hopefully little by little shrubs and other stuff will grow underneath it, right? And then little by little wildlife will come back, but that's like gonna be a long-term process.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, generations. You touched on this a little bit already, but can you kind of give like a rough overview example of what it will look like moving from more of the reforestation focus to a full ecosystem restoration focus?
Yeah. So basically, like you said, our focus is on reforestation right now, but ultimately, as we move forward, right, we are looking at already we've been measuring the quality of the soil, the composition of the soil, and all those stuff. And see, we know that a lot of those soils that where we have our outplanting site, for example, used to be agricultural land, right? So it's heavily degraded, right?
Yeah.
So little by little, as we're growing the trees, we're gonna manage it. We're gonna be managing the soil. We're gonna be managing everything, and then collect data and see how well the soil is regenerating, right? All those little bugs that you see in the soil when you measure them, that shows you that the soil is actually gaining some kind of health, right? And as we continue, we're gonna shift. As I said earlier, we're gonna shift our focus and then start looking at the ecosystem wide, as opposed to just focusing on reforestation. But reforestation is such a key component. Without the trees, we couldn't do anything. It's a foundation, and because it takes so much time for those trees to grow. So we are gonna shift the focus, but right now we are limited in our capacity to do so. Not because the trees are not at the level that we want them, also because the trees need to. We also need like a manpower to do that type of work, and we are not there yet. And then we are hoping that in the near future we will reach a level where we will have the manpower to basically manage the ecosystem approach. But we are moving slowly towards that ecosystem restoration.
Yeah, we're growing too.
We're growing, yeah.
Thank you for answering those questions. And is there any last little tidbits, any last thoughts about ecosystem restoration that you want to share?
So far, this is like a sort of an approach that is basically, it's not new to anybody. Ecosystem restoration is not new to anybody, but for the most part, from what I've seen in the country, in Togo, people focus more on the growing trees, right? And that ecosystem approach has not been systematically done, right? And we're hoping that whatever lesson we learn from what we're doing, we will be able to share it with other stakeholders, including the government, State Forest Service, and all those folks, so that they will also use the same approach. I remember when we met with Dr. Andrew Nelson, and I met with the head of the Togolese Forest Service. This was in 2017. One of the things that he complained about is that the fact that they lack people, they lack knowledge, and they don't have the manpower and the capacity to manage, even to actively manage the forest that they're creating or regenerating, because they don't have the know-how, they don't have the manpower to do it. They have people to go grow the trees, but they don't have people to actively manage them, right?
Yeah.
And he told us that that will be some, if we can add value to what they're doing, that will be a huge portion. And we are thinking that in the near future, if we have the capacity, we will become sort of a management type of organization where we also give them advice, right, on how to actively manage not just the reforestation project, but manage ecosystem and manage habitat in order to basically do what they're trying to do, basically to bring back the ecosystem that we used to have. Obviously, it's not going to be the same, but we want some kind of a healthy ecosystem and healthy.
That actually brings up a really good point when talking about what we've been doing over there with the reforestation. It already includes a little bit of that, like education and outreach.
Yes.
Yes. A lot of it focusing more on small local co-ops, and grow people who farm things like that. And that would kind of be that like next step up is taking that knowledge from the more local community approach that we've been getting into, obviously keeping it there, but then also taking it to that next bigger step.
But again, as you know, our philosophy has always been not to get too big, but we can replicate in other communities what we're already doing in Noche, right? So it doesn't have to be like a big exploitation, big endure or anything like that, but we can replicate, because as you know, we focus more on the community, and if the community don't have that ownership, then
right, and every community is going to be a little different, as well as Togo, from north to south, has quite a few different type of ecosystems and climates.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Anything else?
No, that should be it. Yeah, that should be it for this one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Yeah, thank you for joining us again.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you.